We learned today about another taped phone call that a grand jury in Georgia, is surely considering as that grand jury decides whether Donald Trump committed election crimes in Georgia. A week before Donald Trump's now famous phone call from the White House to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, when he asked Secretary Raffensperger to find him 11,780 votes, Donald Trump was taped making a phone call to Francis Watson, the chief investigator for the Secretary of State's office. Donald Trump made that call the day after White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows made a surprising visit to Georgia to try to change the outcome of the election.
Chief of Staff Mark Meadows took the extraordinary step of showing up at a signature audit site in Georgia, where he met with Secretary Raffensperger's chief investigator, Francis Watson, who was supervising that audit process. Behind me is a photograph from that visit. Third, the day after Meadows' Georgia visit, he set up a call between President Trump and Francis Watson. On the call between President Trump and Georgia investigator Francis Watson, the former president continued to push the false claim that he'd won the state of Georgia. Let's listen to that part of the conversation.
You know, you have the most important job in the country right now, because if we win Georgia, first of all, if we win, you're going to have two wins. They're not going to win right now. You know, they're down because the people of Georgia are so angry at what happened to me. They know I won by hundreds of thousands of votes. It wasn't close.
And in this next clip, he told this state law enforcement official that she'd be praised if she found the right answer.
I will, when the right answer comes out, you'll be praised. I mean, I don't know why, they've made it so hard. They will be praised. People will say, great, because that's what it's about, that ability to check and to make it right. Because everyone knows it's wrong. There's just no way.
Joining us now is Gwen Keyes-Fleming, former district attorney for DeKalb County, Georgia. Thank you very much for joining us tonight to give us this perspective on it. I know you're friends with Fani Willis in the neighboring county, who's impaneled the grand jury to consider all of this evidence. But yourself, if this had happened in your county, and for example, this phone call that we just heard with Donald Trump speaking earlier than we realized in Georgia, on tape, would it be striking to you that the officials in the Secretary of State's office decided that they had to tape their phone calls with the president even before the president called the Secretary of State?
Well, I think it's interesting that they did, because now there is that tape out there that could be used possibly as evidence in either the prosecutor's case in chief, her primary case, or it could be used as supporting evidence to establish some other crimes. And I think in answering that question, the key thing is whether that call was received in Fulton County or whether it was received in a neighboring county. Every prosecutor has to prove jurisdiction, has to prove venue. And so that'll be the key question as to how the information surrounding that call would be used by the Fulton DA.
I know people watching this hearing today were shocked by what happened to Shay Moss and her mother. Election workers in Fulton County doing their job, attacked publicly by Rudy Giuliani, attacked by Donald Trump, and then their lives being completely taken away from them by the kind of Trump mob in Georgia. What should prosecutors be looking at in Georgia in relation to that behavior?
So again, as I was watching the testimony, that was some of the most heartbreaking testimony that I had heard. And obviously this is a very serious case where lives have been lost. And it really brings home how personal this all is for so many that lived through it. From a prosecutor lens, one of the things that I think Ms. Willis and her team would be looking at as to whether what has been described or what she can find through the grand jury process would rise to the level of a terroristic threats charge. Again, it has to be corroborated. has to involve threats of violence and with the intent to terrorize somebody. There are even provisions in the law that allow for terroristic threats that are communicated either through tweets or some sort of computer means to be considered as well. So she needs to look and see whether there's sufficient evidence to hold the president accountable in the first incident, former president accountable in the first instance, or whether she thinks it's more prudent to be able to bring that information in to tell the whole story as part of a larger RICO charge. And we've talked about how putting the various potential crimes together, whether it's the forgeries or the alleged forgeries from the fake electors, whether it's influencing witnesses, whether it's false swearing, in terms of, again, making false statements to public officials, all of this could be part of possibly a very strong RICO case, and that's a strategic decision that she and her team will have to make.
Let's listen to how Shaye Moss described these threats.
Yes, a lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920. Yeah.
Were a lot of these threats and vile comments racist in nature?
A lot of them were racist. A lot of them were just hateful. But yes, sir.
Should the FBI and federal prosecutors be investigating those death threats?
I think that's something that needs to be considered. Again, I've been a public servant for 24 years. My father was a public servant. He served as a Tuskegee Airman. To see people who put their lives on the line now to be able to serve the public and then get treated in that way is very disturbing, and I certainly hope that something can be done.
Gwen Keyes-Fleming, thank you very much for your contribution to our understanding of this tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump decided to falsely blame two black women for Donald Trump's losing Georgia, knowing that to name the women publicly would provoke death threats from dangerous armed Trump supporters. Ruby Freeman and her daughter, Shaye Moss, told their stories to the January 6th committee.
There is nowhere I feel safe. Nowhere. Do you know how it feels to have the President of the United States to target you? The President of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one, but he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
I don't want to go anywhere. I second guess everything that I do. It's affecting my life in a major way, in every way. All because of lies. For me doing my job, same thing I've been doing forever.
Joining us now is Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs. She's running as a Democrat to be the next governor of Arizona. Secretary Hobbs, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I know you have been threatened also by the Trump mob because of your work in overseeing the election in Arizona. But you ran for office. You knew you were running into a life of public criticism at times, not supposed to be violent, not supposed to be life-threatening. But to see this happen to election workers is just a horrifying thing. Did election workers in Arizona have similar experiences?
I don't know that they faced as extreme attacks as we saw from the testimony today and the clips that you just played. What I do know is that what this shows is that the people who lost are willing to do anything to overturn the election and do anything to anyone that gets in their way, even if it means putting them in harm's way, as this showed. And this is posing a serious threat to the future of elections. It's just one of the threats that we're continuing to face from the former president's lies, losing qualified election workers because of this heightened threat environment that they're now operating in.
Let's listen to what Adam Schiff said about that and what Shay Moss told him about exactly that.
In addition to the personal impact this experience has had on you and your family, one of the things that I find most disturbing is how these lies discourage longtime election workers from continuing to do this important work. Tell us, if you would, of the other election workers shown in that State Farm Arena video and their supervisors. How many are still election workers in Fulton County?
There is no permanent election worker or supervisor in that video that's still there.
And did you end up leaving your position as well?
Yes, I left.
What is that going to mean for future elections?
Well, it means that we're losing a huge amount of experience and expertise in the administration of elections. And I believe that is exactly what these people want. They want to undermine the integrity of our elections and make it easier to install their loyalists in all of these positions, whether it's appointed positions, overseeing elections, or elected offices, to be able to overturn future results if they don't like them.
We had more testimony about Arizona today in the hearing than we have had before. What did you learn about what was happening in your state as a result of this hearing today?
Well, I wasn't aware of the exact nature of the pressure that was put on Speaker Rusty Bowers that we heard him testify to today. And what it really highlighted for me is the lengths that these folks are willing to go. And they put this pressure on particularly Republicans. I did not experience the same kind of thing in my position, to choose loyalty to their party over our country. And this continues to create a threat for us across the country, because they're continuing to try to use this kind of pressure. Either you're with us or you're out. I mean, look at how Liz Cheney has been ostracized from the party. That's the tactics they're using, and people are giving into that.
Arizona Secretary of State Katie Hobbs, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Other breaking news is that the January 6th committee has secured the cooperation of a documentary filmmaker who has 11 hours of Trump family interviews on video recorded between the crucial months of September 2020, before the presidential election, and January 2021. We don't know how far into January 2021 that video goes. It may include January 6th. It does include comments from Donald Trump on video. That is the breaking news of the night. The January 6th committee will be in possession of all of that video. We don't yet know how it will fit into their hearings. Donald Trump has a problem with religious people. He doesn't understand them. He doesn't understand that some of them actually try to live by and uphold the principles of their religions. Donald Trump has not had one religious moment, not a flash of religion in his adulthood. But since he entered Republican politics, he has been surrounded by religious people, or people who publicly claim to be religious. Most of the publicly religious people around Donald Trump do not take seriously the words, "So help me God." Those are the words at the end of the oath of office that everyone working in the Congress takes, same oath that everyone working in the White House takes. For 4 years, Donald Trump watched everyone around him in Washington, working with him, violate that oath to support and defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic. He watched Republican members of the House and Senate violate that oath repeatedly. He watched everyone working for him in the White House violate that oath in various ways. And so, imagine Donald Trump's shock when in 2 separate phone calls, Russell Bowers, the extreme conservative Speaker of the House in Arizona, told Donald Trump that he would not do anything illegal for him.
Did you tell the president in that second call that you supported him, that you voted for him, but that you were not going to do anything illegal for him?
I did, sir.
You had told President Trump you would not do anything illegal for him.
I did, both times.
January 6th happened because people like Rudy Giuliani and Mark Meadows and John Eastman and others were all too eager to do whatever Donald Trump wanted, legal or not. When Rudy Giuliani first told Rusty Bowers that thousands of people voted illegally, Rusty Bowers asked him to prove it.
He said that they did have proof, and I asked him, do you have names? For example, we have 200,000 illegal immigrants, some large number, 5,000 or 6,000 dead people, etc. And I said, do you have their names? Yes. Will you give them to me? Yes. The president interrupted and said, give the man what he needs, Rudy. He said, I will. And that happened on at least 2 occasions, that interchange in the conversation.
So Mr. Giuliani was claiming in the call that there were hundreds of thousands of undocumented people and thousands of dead people who had purportedly voted in the election?
Yes.
And you asked him for evidence of that?
I did.
And did you ever receive from him that evidence either during the call, after the call, or to this day?
Never.
Without evidence of any wrongdoing in the election at all, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and others continued to urge Speaker Bowers to change the results of the presidential election in Arizona by convening the legislature to then replace the Biden electors with Trump electors and deliver Arizona's 13 electoral votes to Donald Trump. Speaker Bowers explained that he did not even have the power to do that according to Arizona's constitution, and he didn't have the power to call the legislature into session for any reason at all. According to the Arizona Constitution, it would take a 2/3 majority vote to have a special session in the legislature, and of course, Democrats wouldn't vote for that, so it was impossible. Rusty Bowers could have left it at that. He could have said that the Giuliani and Eastman plot was procedurally impossible in Arizona and not pass judgment on it. But he saw it as more than that. He saw it as a violation of his oath of office.
I took an oath. I swore to the Constitution to uphold it, and I also swore to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona. And this is totally foreign as an idea or a theory to me. I will not break my oath.
Religion does not strengthen adherence to the oath of office. That has been proved countless times over the centuries. Many atheists have demonstrated profound devotion to the principles in the oath of office. But for Rusty Bowers, his religion seems to have strengthened the oath's grip on him. He said today that he believes the Constitution itself was divinely inspired. That was his phrase, divinely inspired. He believes that the God he prays to had a hand in writing the Constitution, or guided the hands that wrote the Constitution. And so to violate the Constitution for him is not just violating the laws of man. Donald Trump doesn't understand people like that. He doesn't understand people who actually take their religion seriously and try to live by their religion. He only understands Republicans who exploit religion politically, the way he does. Rusty Bowers' testimony today helped establish that Donald Trump knew that what he was trying to do was illegal. That's why Rusty Bowers told him he would not do anything illegal for him. Something Mike Pence never had the courage to say to Donald Trump. Mike Pence was the most flagrant of all Trump enablers in his public religious pomposity. He has spent a career being publicly religious. Publicly, Mike Pence always reaches for the affect of a preacher giving a Sunday morning sermon. But Mike Pence's religion never stopped him from lying for Donald Trump and publicly supporting and enabling all of Donald Trump's lies, every single one of them, until 1 p.m. on January 6th, when the Trump mob was already attacking the Capitol. And throughout the January 6th committee's investigation, Mike Pence, unlike Rusty Bowers, has never wavered in his abject fear of testifying under oath. Rusty Bowers told the committee today that angry Trump supporters with guns come to his house. Happens all the time. They are not content to just harass him. They also harass his neighbors. Speaker Bowers explained why he has no regrets about doing the right thing, and he explained it in words that Donald Trump cannot possibly understand.
It is painful to have friends who have been such a help to me turn on me with such rancor. I may, in the eyes of men, not hold correct opinions or act according to their vision or convictions, but I do not take this current situation in a light manner, a fearful manner, or a vengeful manner. I do not want to be a winner by cheating. I will not play with laws I swore allegiance to with any contrived desire towards deflection of my deep foundational desire to follow God's will as I believe He led my conscience to embrace. How else will I ever approach Him in the wilderness of life, knowing that I ask this guidance only to show myself a coward in defending the course He let me take. He led me to take.
Leading off our discussion tonight, Barry Burke, who served as special counsel to the House Judiciary Committee during Donald Trump's first impeachment trial and chief impeachment counsel during Donald Trump's second impeachment trial. Also with us, Neil Katyal, former acting U.S. Solicitor General and an MSNBC legal analyst. Barry Burke, you have so much experience in jury presentations, and this strikes me as a jury presentation. And when you think about the jurors that you don't yet have, you can sometimes get a feel for a jury and think, you've got some on your side, you kind of know who they are. But when you think of the jurors out there in the American public who the committee doesn't yet have, it seems that Rusty Bowers today was their best reach yet, their best attempt to reach the jurors who they don't yet have.
Lawrence, I couldn't agree with you more. Today was a wake-up hearing. The election officials and workers, they're the lifeblood of our democracy. And the officials we heard from today, they wanted Donald Trump to win. They just wanted him to win fair and square. So they were giving a wake-up call to those Americans who want to believe the president when he says something, that when he says the election was stolen. And he today and the other officials who testified who also wanted Trump to win, they said, wake up to those Americans. These were lies. They were lies told to you to try to steal the election, to defraud you and the country. And they may have succeeded, but for the courage of these workers. So I think from a trial standpoint, from the American people, today spoke to those who want to believe Donald Trump. And they saw the harm that he caused, both them personally, but also to our democracy and our system of government. So it was a definite wake up America to those who may not yet be there.
Neil Katyal, the witnesses prior to the election workers at the end were people who began their testimony by saying they voted for Donald Trump, they're Republicans, they wanted him to be president, and then Rusty Bowers put it in terms that Donald Trump would never understand, which is he didn't want to win by cheating. And as you looked at the flow of the evidence today, what was your reaction to what you consider the highlights of it?
Well, Lawrence, welcome to the next installment of the Barry and Neil Show. We're psyched to be doing this with you again. And to me, the thing that stood out was the committee's evidence today that Trump had directly involved himself in the false electors plot. Not as just what you were highlighting in your lead up, which was that Trump knew what he was doing was illegal, or that Trump had fantasies about winning the election when everyone in the world of reality knew that that wasn't true. The evidence today was that Trump was actively manipulating governments after the election, that he had called the RNC chair, Rona McDonald, outlining the false electors plot to her. Trump even got John Eastman, the kind of legal architect of this nonsense, on the phone with the chair of the RNC about this. And so, to me, there's lots of evidence over the hearings that have been against other people, but today was really focused on Donald Trump's active wrongdoing. That's what the Justice Department might be looking to, but it's also what Trump himself is looking to, because he's been trying to set up his subordinates like John Eastman to be the fall guy. And that's a lot harder given the testimony today. So today you had these Republicans like Rusty Bowers calling the president a liar. And so then you have the Secretary of State from Georgia, Raffensperger, who's portraying Trump as a malicious pusher of these lies himself. You know, my favorite moment in the hearing was Raffensperger saying, look, I called Trump. I told him I could send him a video link to show that these claims of election fraud were bogus. And Trump's reply was, hey, I have a much better link for you to look at. Now, there are only two types of links I'd ever expect from Donald Trump, the type asking me for money and the type that reminds me to update my antivirus software. But Trump was all in for peddling this election nonsense. He was the peddler in chief. That's what the hearing showed today.